Okay, so that brings us to 9.3, where we need to plot the rectangle. So it needs to have a plot function here, right? Where we call the plot function and we give it a color. And then it plots the rectangle using Matplotlib. So that's a funny one. Now we need to know how to plot a rectangle. Have some ideas. I'm not sure I have the great idea. Let's try to see if we can get through it. So we don't have test for this one because it's a visual task. So we just need to expect it ourselves. So let's write a function here called, what was it called? It was called plot rectangle. Good. So we have a function called plot rectangle, and remember that it needs to, as the first input argument, it always needs to be self, the rectangle instance. And then it has a color. We are not going to use the color right away. And then let's just write 3 here, because we just want to have something to insert a breakpoint on. And I'm going to create the rectangle, and then I'm going to do rect.plot rectangle like this, and let's give it the color red as input argument. Okay, so let's just see what happens when I run this code and then begin to think about the problem. So when I run the code, it calls this function, it creates the rectangle class, and then it calls this function. And remember that what actually happens here, like mentally, is that this rect, it's plugged in here as the first input argument. And that means that self will refer to the rectangle instance. And this is a rectangle instance which we have constructed using our init method. So it has a width of 2 and a height of 2 and xc of 2 and so on and so forth. You should see the other 2 videos if that is at all confusing, and maybe also the first video I recorded. Okay, so now we need to start plotting the rectangle. So for doing that, we need to first get access to Matplotlib. So we import it like this, and now we need to plot something, right? Because remember that what can we do in Matplotlib? We can plot a line. So I'm going to just say let's plot 2x coordinates 1, 3, and then as y values it's like 2, minus 1 maybe. And then we give it a line style. So we give it a line style like this, and then I do plot.show. I think I discussed this in a video for last week. Okay, so if I take this code and copy paste it down here, it plots a line. So observe that the first 2 coordinates are the x coordinates of the points, and then the other 2 coordinates are the y coordinates, 2 and -1. So in order to make a rectangle, I'm just going to work on a rectangle outline. I'm not going to bother filling this rectangle. We want to give it the corners of the rectangle. So where can we get those? Well, it's a little bit leading, but this get corners, it's actually doing something. How can I call that? Well, I just do self.getCorners, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong in here I did red.plot rectangle, and that accesses the plot rectangle function. Now when self is in fact a rectangle, right? Self, oops, debug console. Okay, so my console got taken over by the plot. I need to close it in order to access the console. Self is just a rectangle object, so of course it still has the getCorners method. Oops. Autocomplete, you are my enemy. And we can use that to get the coordinates of the endpoints. So I can, the coordinates of the corners, I should have said. So I can actually just do this self.plot, and then I can plug in the x's and the y's and see what happens. It's not quite going to work, and maybe you can spot the problem with this code, but I'll just try to run it. Because as you see, okay, it starts in the lower left corner, duk, 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 but it doesn't get to the end here, right? It just stops here. So we need a last point which coincides with the first point. So how can we do that? Well, I can just say that we take the X list and then we append the first element of the X list. Actually, I can just, oops, what's going on here? What is something is completely messed up with my VS Code. I have no idea what just happened here. It's like I have two cursors. The curse of the two cursors. Anyway, I can just append this first element to the end of the list. And now, oh, that was my screen recorder. And now it will go to the first point and close the rectangle. So let me just run that and confirm that it in fact works. It should pop up a plot. So now we got the last coordinate included. I think there is a color attribute, but I'm not sure. And I think we can tell it to be color red, for instance. And I think this is going to work. Let's check. Oh, wrong indentation levels. I just need to copy paste all of it. Yeah, okay, so now it's red. That's a start. Now we need to fill it. Is there a fill? Ah, there is a fill. I have a good feeling with fill. Let's see if Phil helps us. Come on, Phil. Be a man of the people. Okay, fill worked. Fine. It kind of looks a little bit soggy. Let's instead of always being red, let's give you color, because color is, let's confirm that color is red, like that's how we called it. And now I kind of think it works. So we call it with red first. Let's call it with blue. End, and just run it and see that it works. It works. Graphically, it kind of sucks compared to this. I'm not completely sure why. It might be a Linux thing. It might be that this one is doing something a little more clever than what I'm doing. But anyway, it's a rectangle. It has a color. I think we're all happy. Of course, in this example, I kind of cheated by using this fill method. Maybe if you do plot and you look at what we have available, maybe this one springs to mind. Honestly, this is where you search Google or you ask ChatGPT, how do I make a filled rectangle? It's the kind of problem where either you know it or you ask Google, and Google will typically know it, or rather somebody on Stack Exchange will know it and post it. Have posted it in 2011, and then you can still hope that the example works. Okay, so that was that problem. I think I'll end the video here.